RSA offers business-driven security solutions that provide organizations with a unified approach to managing digital risk and designed to effectively detect and respond to advanced attacks, manage user access control, and reduce business risk, fraud, and cybercrime. For a limited time, get mobile multi-factor authentication from RSA Secure ID Access for free to help secure your remote or dynamic workforce long-term. Leverage push notification, biometric, and one-time password authenticators to secure access to your cloud applications, on-premises systems, legacy systems, privileged accounts, and more at no cost for 6 months. For more information, visit securityweekly.com/RSA Security. Are you struggling to reduce your cybersecurity risks and meet compliance mandates? Wishing you could be proactive instead of reactive? You need a solution that integrates cybersecurity together to make it affordable, accessible from anywhere, and simplistic, so you can gain a return on investment on your resources. Cyrisma is your answer. It gives you a single interface to identify sensitive data, vulnerable systems, insecure configurations, track progress, and assign accountability. Visit securityweekly.com/Cyrisma today for a 7-day test drive and impress your leadership. That's Cyrisma, Cyrisma. Did you know that over 63% of cyber breaches are caused by a third-party vendor? CyberGRX is on a mission to modernize third-party cyber risk management. Built on the market's first third-party cyber risk exchange, CyberGRX arms you with fast and accurate data, a proven and innovative approach, so you can make rapid, informed decisions and confidently engage with partners. Learn how partnering with CyberGRX will help you become cyber certain. Visit securityweekly.com/CyberGRX.
And welcome back to Security and Compliance Weekly. A couple announcements before we jump back into our discussion with Adrian Sanabria. Would you like to have all of your favorite Security Weekly content at your fingertips? Do you want to hear from Sam and Andrea when we have upcoming webcasts and technical training? Do you have questions for one of our illustrious hosts or someone from the Security Weekly team? Or do you just wish you could hang out with the Security Weekly crew and community? Subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher, sign up for our mailing list, and join our Discord server, but don't search the GIFs for penetration. To stay on the loop on all things Security Weekly, start at securityweekly.com/subscribe. Also, in our upcoming webcast technical trainings, you will learn things like how to thwart attackers using deception and how to build a risk-based vulnerability management program. Visit securityweekly.com/webcast to see what we have coming up and to register, or go to securityweekly.com/on-demand to view our previously recorded webcasts and technical trainings. All right, I want to get back into it with Adrian. And I think first, Adrian, because in our little powwow between segments, I fear that what you're doing here for us might have been missed, and I don't want to miss the opportunity. I want to make sure that our listening audience has a full grasp of what it is that you're going to be doing for us. And so could you just summarize again for us what it is that is your job now at Cyber Risk Alliance /Security Weekly, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So product testing, is the TLDR. So yeah, it's a something I've been wanting to do for almost a decade now. When I joined 451, one of my first questions was, do we get to put hands on products? Because I was really worried about writing about all these companies and these products, but being disconnected from what they were actually making. Like it would be really weird if you were, punching up YouTube and watching a review of a phone, and the person reviewing the phone had never actually held one or used one, like it was all based off of the marketing materials. And that's where a lot of enterprise analyst content is. A lot of those analysts never touched a product. They don't have any experience with it. They may not have any experience with using any products in that market category. So it's all based off the briefing that the vendor gives you, and they can say whatever they want in that briefing. Maybe the analyst checks them on some of it, but there's not a whole lot to keep them honest there. And so I had this experience when I joined 451, and most of the time that they're being fairly honest with stuff, and it's not going to come back to bite you, but. Yeah, I do recall a couple companies, a couple products I was really excited about. And when you're excited about something, it's just kind of this built-in bias. Like, you're not supposed to be biased in the media, but we're human and it happens. And I'd bring up one of these products that I like, and then somebody who'd actually used it, would chime in and say, yeah, actually it doesn't actually do all that. I know they say it does all that, but it doesn't actually work. I'm like, wait, what? How can it not work? They said they've got all these companies using it, and even maybe you do a case study. I've done case studies where I found out, the company I'm doing a case study with hadn't actually deployed the product or used the product, but because they're funded by the same VC or whatever, it's basically part of their job to say nice things about another company's product who's in the same investment fund's portfolio. So a lot of that stuff happens, and we've had some labs, NSS labs. If you weren't aware, just closed up shop. I think they've been around since like 2007, something like that, 2008. But they just closed up shop last month. So that was just interesting timing. With me coming in here to start doing some lab work, some product testing, and taking over that old SC Labs, that old SC Magazine product review space. Which, if you've ever gotten SC Magazine, the complimentary professional subscription in your job or anything like that, you've probably been looking at those 5-star ratings for decades, like me. Literally, and I'm really excited to jump in here and see what we can do with it.
Well, I guess what jumps out to me based on our discussion from the first segment, which we were talking a lot about penetration testing and its efficacy. I want to mispronounce as many words as I can this episode. No, I'm going to say it the way I want to say it.
Fine.
GIF,
do what you want.
GIF, tomato, FU, or whatever. Anyway.
Hey, as long as you say my name the way it's meant to be pronounced.
How would you say it?
You can say efficacy however you want.
Sanabria. Are you
yep.
Nod when I get it right? Anyway, we were talking a lot in the first episode about how at the end of the day, what causes companies to be breached is process failures, lack of documented process, lack of repeatable processes, which bleeds into either not using all the technology products, security products there, using them correctly, using them efficiently, using them as designed, yet alone maybe the possibility that they don't do what they claim to be doing. How are you planning on rolling all of that truth into product testing? How are you going to help the buying community out there distinguish between good products and better products, but at the end of the day, if you don't use it correctly and if you don't plug it into a security program that has documented procedures that are repeatable, that anybody can pick up and do, and so on and so forth, then what's the point?
Right. So, I think it's not going to be terribly common that a product fails a functional test, but that is part of it. Just functional testing, does it do what it says on the tin, and making sure that it does. There will be products out there that will fail that test. I'm not saying the majority of the industry is like that at all. Typically, what's more common is you find people, somebody might have the budget to buy a product, but might not have the people to run it. So that's what I see a lot. And SIM is a great example there. Most SIMs are a chore to handle. We've got some newer options out there that are less so. But the traditional SIM, first and foremost, was this huge data store that took you probably need to dedicate somebody just to managing it, making sure the disk didn't fill up, making sure components don't fall over, making sure that all the logs are going where they're supposed to be. When you've got 1,000 different sources sending you logs on any given day, maybe 10% of them stop sending you their logs for some weird reason. Somebody rebuilt it and forgot to, put the right syslog.conf on there, or whatever the problem might be.
Lack of process.
But a lot of people, well, so I like to say, like you're buying a video game, a PC game or something like that. This doesn't apply to console games, but PC games, you look at the requirements, and see if your PC that you have at home has a good enough graphics card to run it, has enough RAM to run it, has a good enough CPU to run it. And I think really, the industry needs to do that as well. A lot of these products take a lot of people to run them effectively. And
interesting. So like a instead of minimum system requirements, it's like minimum program requirements, something along those lines.
Minimum, labor, staff requirements. So do you need a Python programmer to use this effectively? Another thing with SIM is, one of the big pieces of running a SIM is maybe they don't have a parser for some custom app that you have, or even for some commercial tool that you have. You need to get logs in from that. Do you have skills on staff to write your own parser, or do you have the extra budget to pay the SIM vendor to write that parser for you? And these are the kinds of things that a lot of companies don't consider before acquiring these products. Like the cost of running the product is more than just what you pay for the base product. It's that plus additional professional services, maybe plus the staff that you need to maintain it. So we can put some metrics around that. Like one of the metrics I like to use is what I call time to value. From the time that you buy the product, you sign that PO. How long does it take you to get it up and running to where it's producing value? And then another metric, labor to value ratio. Once you do have it producing value, how many hours per week, how many FTEs, how many people per week does it take to keep it at that level where it's producing value for the security organization? And both those beg the question, how do you define value for this product? When is this product even producing value? And because of the nature of security, a lot of these products, especially if they're preventative products, you need a metric other than we haven't had a breach yet. Because that's not helping you measure the product. That could just be circumstance, that could be luck. So that's going to be part of what I'm doing, is figuring out how do we define value for this particular type of product. And I'm going to need that to be able to come up with these metrics.
So I've been trying to think a little bit about how this, what you're describing, while you're saying that you're going to approach it differently and you have some ideas, and I acknowledge that, it still falls into the security bucket largely. Have you given much thought as to how can you produce a product or information that will be of interest and help out more the compliance side of the world, where the buyers might be a little bit different, or they're not buyers at all. They're the interpreters, or they're looking for certain types of products to be in place. Right? Yeah, stakeholders is another way to put it.
So a lot of security products are platforms. One of the things I've found is doing this consulting work that I've done is a lot of companies don't even know what they've got. Maybe there's a couple acquisitions, and all of a sudden the product you're paying for has 14 more features because they acquired this other company. Oftentimes, buyers, if they're not looking at the weekly newsletters or whatever, they don't even know what features are available to them. So that's going to be part of the product testing, is making it clear, here's what the product does, here's the features, which, from the average vendor website, sometimes it's very difficult to figure out what it can do, or, they're only going to mention so many features, especially these platforms that have all this functionality from all these acquisitions they've done, like Palo Alto, for example. Like there's a lot going on there, and they're constantly acquiring new companies and new products and rolling it together. Like their cloud security product is like 4 or 5 acquisitions rolled into one. And yeah, I think there's a need for an independent entity to go in there and just kind of plainly state, okay, here's what's going on there. Here's how you would use it. And that benefits compliance too, because the question is, is this going to help me comply with this regulation or that regulation, is this going to count as antivirus, or is this complementary to antivirus, for example? All kinds of examples there where compliance is going to have questions that we'll be able to answer in these product reviews.
Hey, there's a question that was asked by a certain purveyor of whiskey on the Discord channel. A series of questions, and I'd like to get your take on it. Do most products just release and just have people fend for themselves, or do most products provide continued support? What is industry standard? Is there even a standard?
So again, I think we're going to find, I think I'm going to find that I have to adjust the methodology, and the product reviews are going to look different depending on the market segment. So there's going to be variations between products, but generally, if you're going to consider an enterprise ready or an enterprise level product, yeah, there should be 24/7 support. There should be some free training, I would think, and maybe additional training that you can pay for or you can send people off to. So absolutely, the vendor themselves should give some support there. And again, I think there's a lot of companies, a lot of folks out there that don't even think about that, that will just, trudge through these issues and this troubleshooting. And either because they don't realize they have support from the vendor, or they've just, in the past had such bad luck with support that they don't reach out. So that's another thing that you can mention in a product review is here's what to expect from support. Here's the level of help you can expect from that vendor. Is that what you're asking?
I don't know. I was asking on behalf of, I plead the fifth of whiskey. So it is what it is. I have a question for you that's sort of related, and it's sort of infusing my take on some of this. I think a fundamental problem within our industry is sort of the gap that exists between companies as consumers, companies as users of products that have a fairly solid and firm belief that's a fairly good proportion of these companies that security is something that's should be ubiquitous within the organization. It should require very little thought or effort on behalf of the user community and the administrative community. In other words, the products that they deploy should kind of take care of it. It should be more or less fully automated and just do everything for them for whatever reasons, but so they don't have to think about it. And that's one train of thought within this industry. And then there's another train of thought, which we were sort of talking about during the first segment, where things break for so many different reasons that are beyond the technology that's deployed, or even beyond the technology that we're trying to protect. But the reality is that if you talk to a security practitioner, well, there's so much more to it than just simply relying on the product. There's work, as you're describing, the time to value, the labor to value. You got to put stuff into it to get stuff out of it. How do you begin to address sort of the misconception that I'm calling it a misconception, that security is something that you just drop a bunch of holy grails and silver bullets into your environment and you turn them all on and you're done and you walk away?
Yeah, it's a recipe for failure right there. I mean, I've been in organizations where the security, what they call the security team, are really just a group of people, that are each assigned a product, and they maintain those products. They look at the alerts on those products. They fine tune the configuration. Whether it's an IDS or a WAF or a firewall or a SIM or something like that, and they think that's security. And it's entirely tactical. There's nothing strategic about it, and there's just so much more to security than just getting these products in place and babysitting them. I think that could even be done entirely outside the security department. That could be a separate department itself. And in some big security departments, that is separate. The ops stuff, those folks, those are different people.
Captain,
So
move
are
off
you
the bleeps, the sweeps, and the
advocating?
creeps. like you've got 75 point products in a security department, and like, oh, we've got something. What is it? I don't know. They've never been trained on the product. They've never actually used the product. They've never tested it with sampling, and God knows, trying to integrate them with all 73, 4, whatever other point products. God help you. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, right. Like where are your 5 Python developers so that, I like to say email is a terrible API, but with 75 point products, that's what you're going to be using for, the IDS guy to share stuff with the lady running the firewall or vice versa. They're emailing each other IP addresses back and forth. That's probably still a common thing today. And it really shouldn't be. We should have some kind of, McAfee tried that, like creating a common bus for all the products to talk to each other. There have been some attempts to do that. SOAR was a big push to make that happen. Integrate all your products with this one platform. And let it
but unfortunately, the people
data.
that are playing, and I gotta step in here. Unfortunately, the people that are playing in the SOAR market, the cost of their products is so exorbitantly through the roof, or it doesn't hit the entire business vertical of small, medium, large, and then enterprise. That SOAR really hasn't taken off.
Well, again, each time you add a category like SOAR, like somebody's going to be the SOAR person. Somebody's going to be the person who dives in there deep, write some code, integrates these products, goes and fetches the API keys or, whatever you have to do to get that integration going. So operationally, you need somebody there, but on the more strategic side of things, you need somebody thinking about, okay, we've got SOAR. Where can we leverage that? How can we make that easier on day-to-day operations? How can we use that to surface threats and things like that we wouldn't otherwise see? So you need somebody more on the creative side, kind of thinking through scenarios and things like that. Because what you end up seeing with a SIM, you've got canned reports that it comes with. They're all useless because, they can't build those for every business. Or there's just no imagination put into them. And the same thing's going to happen with SOAR. And again, we're back to process, where to be able to do that process well, you have to understand the threats against the business. You have to understand how the business works. And you've got to have somebody with that kind of 10,000-foot view, that high level, strategic mind that's going to say, SOAR needs to do this for us, and these are the reports we need to run in our SIM.
So I will point out that there was a product for the government called Ozone, and it was a way that I don't know if you know about this, but there was a company when I was at Mach 37, Cyber 2020. I don't know if they're still around. They were lovely people. It was basically an in-browser database. So if you had
sounds like a realty company.
What's that?
Sounds like a realty company.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Like I said, I don't think they're still around, but it was. I don't remember if that was the one. Forgive me, but it was
Century 21.
If you had an
Cyber
IP address
2020?
in one browser tab and you clicked on it and said, look for it, and all of your other browser tabs and all of your other applications on the computer, it would look for that IP address. So you could actually, instead of cutting and pasting it to 14 different tools, you could run it from. It would show you where it was in all the different tools, and even that was considered almost revolutionary. And so SOAR, and that was only a couple of years ago.
I remember when KeyRadar added the ability to customize the right-click context menu. So you could right-click on an IP address, and as long as the other tool used a variable in the URL to do a lookup on that IP address, you could go in there and you could customize it yourself. And for whatever tool you have, and it would just insert the IP into a URL, essentially just doing the copy paste for you. Seems like a tiny thing, but when you're working in investigation and you don't have to manually do that copy and paste anymore, it's a huge time saver. You can focus more on the incident and less on what tool you need to open and pivot to and how to copy and paste from that application.
Yeah. Yeah, so anything that saves a second or two is worthwhile. If it saves minutes, hours, or days, it's amazing.
The other problem is that the vendors that play in the SOAR arena, just to bring it back here, and I really want to point this out. They use their SOAR product, right, as a lead generator, right? Like FireEye has Helix that is in the SOAR market, but Helix is really geared towards incident response and forensics, right? And then you've got D3 and a couple other companies where the starting cost is $100,000, right? How?
Yeah.
Adrian, if we could say in the SOAR market, you had to pinpoint one thing that can make a broad impact, what would it be?
There's a lot of cases where, honestly, you're going to get a whole lot more mileage out of a Python savvy developer just out of college. You know, both you know, productivity wise and budget wise than you are out of a SOAR product. So, and I think we're starting to see some open source options there as well, and that's something I definitely want to consider. I haven't jumped into them too deeply. I can't even name one right now, but I know there are a couple open source SOAR products out there. But honestly, like most of the stuff I've seen people do in SOAR products isn't too time consuming to put together in Python yourself. It's a 1 or 2 hour job for somebody that knows Python. You know, maybe an extra half hour to read the API documentation. So it just depends on how much you're scaling that. Like when you really got to start scaling some of the stuff you're automating with a SOAR product, that's where a SOAR product starts making more sense. You know, if you've got hundreds of automations going, you know, but smaller shops that can't afford $100,000 SOAR tool probably aren't doing that many automations, or if they are,
well, they're not even looking at it.
It's going to be better for them to just put a developer on that task. So that's another thing that I think we don't think about enough in security is build versus buy. Like a lot of people, their brain just goes straight to buy. Oh, we need to buy a solution for that. And in a lot of cases, it does make more sense to build.
Mileage varies, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask, because I'm behind on my counter, I want to ask a PCI question.
Bing.
You know, as you're putting together, as you're testing products and you're putting together product sheets or recommendations or whatever, have you given any thought to the, and I'm sure this is probably true for other regulatory compliance standards. Josh referred to the 75 point solutions that are in an organization. Many of those point solutions were purchased to meet specific regulatory compliance requirements, like PCI. If you're going to do that, if you're going to diverge from these sort of standard, what everybody expects to see in terms of a product to meet a particular PCI or other requirement, I'm intentionally racking up my score here.
That's okay. You're missing the new one.
Oh geez, I'm getting there. I've seen the new one. I'm getting there. You're not, so product is out there. It could do, it would be a great alternative to antivirus. It's something new, whiz bang, that somebody never thought of, and it's a new way of looking at the new problem, the way the malware problem has evolved, type of thing. If as a vendor, you've got a problem not only of selling that to the customer that you want to sell the actual product to, but you also perhaps have to convince the assessors and auditors that are going to come in and say, oh yeah, that meets that requirement. Have you given any thoughts as to how to tailor your work product to not necessarily the consumer audience, but the assessor, auditor, people that will bless it or not type of audience?
Yeah, so for the vendor, that's really a question of, if I put my product management hat on, or product marketing hat, that you have to think about your personas, that you're selling to. Who is the buyer here? Is it someone who's heavily regulated? If so, then, maybe you have to sell just as hard to the auditor or the QSA or the assessor as you do to the customer. Or maybe that affects what vertical you choose first. In some cases, You might see a early stage startup stay away from regulated companies because the sales cycle is going to be too long for them. They're not going to be able to grow at the rate their VC wants them to grow. So again, I guess that's where some of that business knowledge comes in useful here. If you're buying a product, you learn to recognize, this product is tailored for healthcare, or they're completely avoiding healthcare, and I need to wait a couple of years before this is even going to be ready for a PCI type environment or a healthcare type environment. They're just not there yet. They'll get there, but they need the resources. They need the growth and the resources before they can even worry about that. So,
well, the reality
absolutely,
is
that's something the product testing would take into account. Yeah.
Reality is the plan for most vendors is they're tailoring their solution to sell it to whoever can afford to buy it, whether that's a particular vertical or particular regulated industry or not.
Say it how you want, however you want.
It's that proverbial enterprise. We're selling to the enterprise because we perceive that the enterprise has more money to buy one more point solution like ours.
And that's a huge trap. That's a huge trap for a vendor too. And I've seen this happen with vendors where they go after a huge enterprise, and this enterprise comes back to them with this laundry list of 24 things the product needs to do for them to buy it, and they all of a sudden they end up with a product that only that company wants. That only that huge enterprise with 100,000 endpoints wants. So yeah, you've made a huge sale, but now you've priced yourself out of, or you've specialized your product so much, that it's you've taken it off the market almost. And we've seen cases where very large enterprises have acquired product vendors. Like I remember Facebook bought this one company. All they did is they would encrypt the contents of RAM. So they would actually put run a Linux operating system within the CPU cache to protect against these very rare threats where somebody could maybe come into a data center and copy data off of RAM as the machine is running, or maybe they take it offline, they freeze the RAM to keep the data in there. Technique where you flip the duster upside down version. And you cool the RAM. Yeah.
Or maybe it's something like malware, memory scraping malware that is able to pull off the RAM.
Oh, you mean from like a point of sale system for a PCI, or that you should be able to find during a pen test? Or is pen testing actually in a pen test? Are they actually point solutions?
So I want to dedicate a whole segment to this topic, but first question would be define what is meant by point in time. It's not a trick question.
At the time of testing, right? That is the point in time, right? Like you can't look ahead, but you can look behind at what's been done, right? So the test, right, is delivered at that point in time, and it's only good for at that point in time, right? Compliance regimes need to be brought up to more, I want to say, current times, in that testing should be.
So you mean like
it should
PCI, where
Yes.
2/3 of PCI is looking to see if you have a procedure in place, and have you been performing the things associated with that procedure, and you're checking it on a periodic basis during the course of the year, whether it's a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annual activity. But 2/3 of PCI says, are you doing all these things on a regular basis? Do you have procedures in place? And yet people call PCI a point-in-time assessment, which is why I balk at the term.
PCI is a point-in-time assessment.
It is.
No, it's not.
It is.
So
It is.
So
if it wasn't a point-in-time assessment, you couldn't retroactively have it
Jeff,
removed because you
the typical PCI assessment.
Here we go.
The typical PCI assessment for the organization that I work for lasts anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. So which particular point in time within that, let's say, 8-week time frame are we talking about?
Well, 8 weeks is 2 months, which is 1 month is 1/12, 2 months is 1/6 of the year. So that is a point in time. 1/6 of the year.
It's more like a
You're not around.
How big does the point have to be before it's a representative of your security program, of your procedures being in place?
So that's not the right question. That's not the right question. The right question
I have to give you a question that you can answer.
No. Uh-oh. It's not the right question. Seriously, bear with me for a second. Valid point you raise. It is not the right question. The right question is not how long does the engagement have to be for it not to be point in time. The right question is how long can the interval between be for it not to be a point in time? Because it is not a point in time assessment if you look at it over a period of 10 years or whatever, because every year we come back. It is a periodic and therefore continuous assessment. However, the period in between is so long, we regard it as a point in time assessment.
What
if the period
can you
was
do
1 day,
other than evaluate what has been done in the intervening time, and have you kept up with all the things that you said that you were doing, which is what PCI is supposed to be doing? That's the point I'm trying to make. How else can you do it, or do you just don't bother at all?
And this is a valid question.
So I'll weigh in here. If you don't mind.
No, please.
PCI is. I think the perfect examples here, we just need pen test and PCI. Pen test is point in time because you're evaluating the environment as it is today. Like there's no way for a pen tester to check the environment a quarter ago, a couple of months ago, because there's that environment's gone. The states have all changed. So that is by the nature of it, point in time. PCI was designed to not be point in time because most of the rules say, like for the tester, you have to go back and check and see if they actually had the logs for this to see if this was actually in place. There's quarterly stuff that has to happen. There's monthly stuff that has to happen, biannual stuff that has to happen, annual stuff. So you're checking on a whole year's worth of stuff every time you do one of those engagements. So by very definition, not point in time. I mean, you're checking it at a point in time, but that's not what point in time means. And in some cases, like one of the things I suggested back when I was a QSA was that we maybe come in once a quarter, so that, the gap analysis and the actual rock isn't such a madhouse. Once a year when we come in, because it tends to overwhelm the organization because everybody's asked to go get screenshots and samples and logs and all this crap. So absolutely, you could do PCI where the assessor comes in once a month, once a week, once a quarter, or something like that. So, and in my opinion, it's very much not point in time. My question though, so to play devil's advocate, Jeff, what do you do if you come in and they're only compliant when they need that rock? When they've missed some of the stuff that they should have been doing all year, but when you come in, they're doing it. That was always a DMZ, big problem.
David Zenzian, North Korea, actually put that in the Discord. He said he used to be a very strict QSA. And if they missed something, they couldn't make it up. But I don't know. I mean, would that mean that you would fail them? So you wouldn't give them a rock?
Yes, that means they fail.
You can't fail them because they're now doing it.
Well, right? Sure you can. Well, it's somewhat of a trick question. If it's your first assessment, if it's the first time you're looking at them, you can't make companies go back and do something over the previous 12 years if they haven't been doing it. You can't make it up. There is a certain amount of forgiveness and hand washing at that point. The assurance is usually that not only are you doing it now, but are you set up and can you reasonably assure the QSA that you're going to do it on an ongoing basis, even though you didn't previously? The second year, though, let's
walk through that, though. Like you fail them. Say you fail them, they just fire you and hire a different QSA that's not going to fail them, right?
That is certainly
isn't that like sort of,
and that's
isn't that like
certainly
sort
a
of
deterrent.
Isn't that like sort of phoning a call center until you get somebody that will give you the answer you want?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
So let me ask you a
Now-
question. No, in all seriousness, if they had been certified a year ago, okay, and let's say it was their first assessment a year ago. Just bear with me for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And they got their rock, they got all their stuff. They're yay, we're good. Okay, and a year later you come in and all right, let's check what happened in this past year. And you say, okay, show me this, show me this. You do your evidence collection, you know the routine. And you say, okay, there's a problem here. You missed, I don't know, you missed XYZ 6 months ago. And where's the judgment? Is it you missed XYZ 6 months ago, but since then you've been doing a beautiful job. I'm going to fail you retroactively and then but certify you going forward? Is it, no, you made it up, you're good. Obviously it was a fluke. Yeah, we fired some guy, he was screwing up. We brought somebody in who's been doing an amazing job since then. Mm-hmm. No problem. What?
But Josh, you're bringing in a different scenario because
no, I'm not.
Yeah. Well, you are though, because and this is where PCI and where I like to say and harp on the fact that it's an assessment, not an audit, because part of the definition or the implication of it's an assessment is it's subjective. It's the QSA making a judgment call at some level, and this kind of speaks exactly to that. Okay. Are you getting Adrian can concur or not because he's been a QSA. If you're working with a company and you get the impression that they're just blowing smoke up your ass, euphemistically, of course, and they're really treating it like this is our annual audit.
Thanks for clarifying that.
We haven't looked at any of this stuff in the last year, but now it's time to just scramble and pull all this crap together that we've been supposed to be doing. All the documentation is supposed to be reviewed on an annual basis, and you look at it, and the review date is the Thursday before the Monday that you showed up on site. That type of thing. It's pretty easy to get to figure it out, especially the more you do, that, okay, these people are not getting it. That's a lot different than the scenario you described where, stuff happens. I mean, AV is supposed to be 100% coverage and 100% covering every system, making sure, all the signature updates when it was just that are being updated. The scans are happening on a regular basis and so on and so forth. Nobody in the world gets 100% on their AV coverage. So
what you're saying?
I think the perfect example. There's a perfect example here, and it's when somebody tells you, "Hey, sometimes customers send us credit card information in email. They'll email us a spreadsheet, or they'll just email their credit card details. And we'll take the order that way, but we tell them not to. Versus." Right. And that's not going to fail you on PCI.
There's things that
you can't stop them from sending you that. But if I look at your processes and the process is email us your credit card info in plain text, that's a totally different story.
We agree, Adrian. Trust me. But what I'm hearing and what I'm saying is that what you guys are saying is that PCI is 100%. PCI has significant subjectivity in it. And therefore, Interrater reliability is going to be difficult to actually measure on a reliable basis. Actually, no, it'll be easy to measure. It'll be crappy. You're not going to have good Interrater reliability because the objectivity is not there.
Enter what?
I think
Interrater reliability is a term that says
different QS.
Exactly. Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Different QSAs are going to come to the same conclusion. I mean, we struggle with that problem within our own team at my company because it is absolutely designed to be subjective, and that's it's kind of like our form of government. It's the beauty of it is it's so imprecise and unpredictable and messy and inefficient. Maybe it's not an exact analogy, but To the degree,
analogy,
to the degree that the PCI Council has over the years tried to come up with ways of making the whole thing more standardized and therefore more whatever the term is that you're using. I mean, that's why today I am not qualified to be a QSA, because I don't currently hold certain certifications that they now require, where in the old days it was good enough to have job experience, and you could have relevant job experience as an alternative. It's why you're no longer, as a QSA, allowed to write your own report. Everybody has to write from the same template that the council provides, and it's atrocious in my book, because I always used to write narrative rocks. I would put explanations into the answers, and especially if it wasn't square peg in square hole. If we were doing any type of this, well, they're meeting the spirit of the requirement. It's not necessarily what you imply, even though PCI Council claims to not imply certain products or endorse to meet requirements. But it's necessarily true. It's what's wrong with the way that the PCI industry has evolved in terms of how the assessments are performed and how compliance is tracked, because everybody is pressuring them to move it towards something more objective and more standardized and more punch list, checklist, which is what people thought it was 15 years ago, when it really wasn't. It was much more subjective and allowed to be subjective then. So it's this weird convergence of misconceptions.
Jeff, I thank you. That was beautiful. And I just want to point out that I am not in any way, shape, or form denigrating, being using subjectivity in an assessment. If you're an industry professional and you understand what's going on, and you're like, oh, you're not doing specifically what they say, but you are controlling this, you are protecting against that, you're doing the appropriate things, it's just not what anybody conceived of doing for that, then why shouldn't you be able to write it up? It's appropriate. We're on the same page. So I just want to point out, I wasn't trying to diss or denigrate what you were saying. Please understand. But
Can we go on record and make a InfoSec prediction here and say that it's going to take at least 5 to 10 years for companies to, or for compliance regimes, for compliance regimes to catch up to the loopholes that people are finding right now? Because this really sounds like a big old loophole.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, so here's the problem. You've got let's bring it back to pen testers, which is where we started this whole crazy ass segment then. But pen testers walk in, and you've got methodical pen testers, and you've got, I find the first thing and I write it all the way in, and I grab everything and I run out, and I don't care about anything else because I can write my report. Okay. And then you've got QSAs that are like, show me this, show me this, show me this. I'm done. Fill out the template and walk away. And you've got QSAs that are like, let me explain, explain to me how you're doing this and why and where the process is around this. And I think that, we can all agree that the people that are more methodical, that are doing more a deep dive, are doing a better job. And they're helping the companies more. We've run into situations where I've seen IT auditors that are actually financial auditors. And they're like, all right, check box, check box, check box. But they don't understand what they're doing. They're just checking boxes because somebody said, if you see this product, it checks this box. So
I mean, that's always been a weak point of PCI, and it's I've come in behind many fired QSAs when I was a QSA, and like my favorite example is the talking about objectivity, not enough posters. Not enough security awareness posters. You need at least 3 more posters. It's like
we need to
get. You don't have enough
security
flair.
Awareness posters per square foot.
Yep.
We need to get a poster back there of Jeff Mann drinking.
You've only got 15 pieces of flair.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's I actually posted in the Discord just now. Brandon Williams put together this excellent 7 deadly sins of the QSA. And it's all talking about those inherent biases, because any kind of auditor role will attract a certain percentage of personalities that are likely to make up rules, because they just have that kind of personality where they want to see things a certain way, and they have trouble separating the actual PCI requirements from their own requirements. They may not even notice that they're making up these requirements. Like, no, you don't have enough posters, which is, I mean, that's kind of on edge. Like they get to say you don't have enough posters, but to a point, right?
But you can have fun with that too, because I was at a site one time where they were
fun
going over their fun for me. They were going over their media destruction procedures, and their media, what do you do when the hard drive goes bad? They actually had a written process that said they took it out in the back alley and took a sledgehammer to it, and they showed it to me and they asked me if it was okay, and I said, well, I'm going to need to see the sledgehammer. Is it DoD standard? And they started freaking out, and they're like, "Who's got the sledgehammer? Where is it? We got to find it." I'm like, "Guys,
you bastard!
Down.
You bastard!"
That's excellent.
But it's when you have light moments like that you build up a rapport, and at least that's what worked for me. Is like, oh, you're not just trying to fit us into the box. You are giving us the ability to try to meet the objective of the requirement, not necessarily exactly what the words are saying. Anyway, well, we could go on and on. Scott, say something real quick.
Something real quick.
Good. I just wanted to make sure I was still winning, because it's time to wrap the episode. I want
you're still winning. You're definitely winning.
Winning. All right. Well, need to wrap up for today. It's been a great conversation. Definitely want to have a pen test topic talk sometime in the near future. I think we do have a compliance topic slot available in December. It might slip out to January. I'm not sure. The calendar changes all the time. Adrian, welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you. Look forward to seeing the fruits of your labors, if not loins. And look forward as the days and weeks and months roll out here to see how this all plays out. So thank you for joining us today. For more information about what Adrian's doing, I don't know, stalk him on social media. I don't know if he has anything set up yet to produce an output, but stay tuned. Guys, thanks. That's going to wrap us for today's Security and Compliance Weekly. Next week, we're going to be talking to someone from RSA, and we're going to take up, per a listener suggestion, this whole concept of cyber credit scores. So come join us for the
argument.
The argument. I was trying to come up with a creative way. The interesting discourse, or intercourse, as the case may be. Anyway, go have fun on the Discord server and try to think up different things you can search on the GIF button. And we'll see you next week.